one is Miss A.
Wow.
Babybeats.com and add me on my phone sideways, and I'll be okay.
Okay. Since you got a good signal.
If you turn it up right, how would it look? Huh?
Is that better? It's hard to get.
It's okay. Yes, sir.
Is that better?
You can hear me, so it's fine.
Can you hear me, Neva?
I like it.
Okay.
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you. Well, to my right is Star. Say hi, Star.
Hi.
We got Shakita online. And we also have Tommy coming online as well. Neva, you want to start with our positive quote of today?
Yes, definitely. So today is not going to be a quote, but it's something that's been on my mind all day. And I just wanted to share with everybody. And y'all know fall here now, just last Saturday, I believe. And this whole time, like this whole week, I've just been thinking of newness. I'm still confused as to how this will work. Shakita, once I'm done, then she's going to bring y'all on. Once I'm done, she's going to bring y'all on. Ty Cities in here. She's going to bring each one of them on. Speak your piece. But, like I was saying, like it's fall now, so we in a new season, and I feel like there's a lot of shifting going on. So wherever you are right now in your life, just embrace this shift, whatever that may be. For me, it's getting back into business, working again, and just going through a whole change in my life. That everybody else embrace the new season. Like, just because the weather has changed, that don't mean that it don't affect it too. Just be mindful. You are shifting along with the season, and embrace, write down goals. Think about what it is that you want to manifest in this last quarter of 2018. So that's all I have today. I'm still going to be on. Hands are the guests. I'm still be on, but that's my piece. So I'm going to sign out so our guests can come on today, and I'm really excited about being one. But I'm signing it out, and we're gonna let our.
All right, Neva, you're breaking up a little bit. I don't know if it's my signal or your signal, but we'll see. Okay, y'all. So today's word of the day is justice, and that is the quality of being just, impartial, or fair. And funny, our topic today is also justice system reform. So we have a lot of people who have dabbled in the justice system, who've had hands-on experience, who've been through it, and we're just going to get different point of views from different people who actually walked through the flame and walked through the fire. So we're going to do some introductions. And again, to my right is Star. Star, would you like to tell them a little bit about what you've done?
I was a public defender for many years in several different counties out through North Carolina, and I focused mainly on juvenile justice and low-level crimes for adults. So yeah, I've definitely finally
Right. All the tech issues mixed in together. I feel like we're at work right now.
So yeah, I've had 100 trials throughout my career. I've had almost 20 jury trials. Had a lot of wins, had a lot of losses, and I've seen the justice system up front, personal. So I'm here to assist in any way I can.
All right, thank you, Star. Woo! All right, so next we have Shakita and Tyson. I'm gonna bring y'all on camera, okay? Let me know when you see it. There we go. Shakita, it should be asking you to join. Let me know if you see it. There we go. So now, y'all, we have Shakita Sittner coming on. She has worked in the jails, and she's also did therapy for those who have been incarcerated. So she's just going to introduce herself, and then further down the line, we'll gain her perspective on everything that she's seen. Shakita? Shakita? Tyson, can you see me or hear me? There she is.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you. All right.
Okay.
So just tell our viewers.
Hey everyone.
Hi.
Like Tosh said, I am Shakita. I spent about 3 years working as a substance abuse counselor at a jail here in our area. Criminal justice reform has always been a passion of mine in some way, shape, or form. I've always been fascinated with working with those who have been incarcerated or formerly incarcerated. So I'm looking forward to sharing my insight during this podcast today.
All right. Thank you. And where is Tyson at?
You should be able to give him access separately. He's on his laptop.
He can't do it through his laptop. He got to do it through his phone.
Oh, okay.
Closing up the laptop now. I'm already on it on my phone.
Okay, he's already on his phone.
Okay. So, all right, there we go. All right, thanks, Shakita.
Mm-hmm.
All right, you gotta get off of yours so I can bring him on.
I'll get off it, girl. Oh.
It's- all right, Ty, you gotta come back on your phone. It showed me when you had the green buzzer. It's not showing up right now. Let me see. Tommy, where you at? So we're waiting on one of the guys, either Ty or Tommy, to come on. All right, here we go. All right, Tyson, you got to shut your computer down so you can use your phone to come on. See, y'all, we ain't perfect. We got imperfections, but we still make it do what it do, regardless of the imperfection. Yours is delayed, Shakita. Okay, so let's see. All right, Ty, it should be letting you on right now.
All right, can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. Welcome.
All right. Yeah. How y'all doing?
Okay.
Good. How are you?
I'm Tyson. Like I said, I've been dealing with law enforcement now for 5 years. Needless to say, I can only give you from the perspective from the CO perspective and the things that I see on a regular basis. And as far as criminal justice reform, needless to say, I think I'm probably going to be on the losing end of this argument as far as how I see things. So we shall see how this goes.
All righty. Thank you, sir. All right. You got to disconnect your end.
All right. Oh, okay, I see.
It's all right. We all having difficulties today. All right, Tommy, where are you? So we got a screen freeze right now. But anyway, I think I'm trying to see where Tommy is. Not sure if he got kicked out, but once he gets back in, I'll let him go ahead and do his introduction as well. So today we just want to talk about what is the reform of the justice system look like? Like, who is impacted by it? We want to know, who do we get in contact with to make sure that the injustice is being stabilized? Like, what do we need to do to make sure that we are helping the justice system? Because this impacts our community. Is statistically, we get locked up longer for less severe crimes, or even if it is severe crimes, we may get locked up longer than someone who doesn't look like us. So it's very important for us to have this conversation and just be honest about this conversation. So, Star, I'm gonna start with you. Like, to you, coming from a defense attorney, what does criminal justice reform look like to you?
Well, first off, I think the main two things would be to limit mandatory sentencing, and also decriminalizing a lot of, for instance, marijuana. As you know, more and more states are making it legal, but we still have states that haven't. And also do something retroactively to where the people that were convicted of it may get relieved of their sentencing, because it is a nonviolent crime, and that goes along with mandatory sentencing. Because let's say that you got caught with an ounce and a half more of marijuana on you, that's a felony, and 3 strikes of that and you are locked up for 10 years. So for a non-violent offender, that's a long time.
Right.
So I think mandatory sentencing has to go, and they did a survey recently that said like 90% of Americans are in favor of that. And also, like I said, making things less of a crime, like certain drugs. Yeah, driving on suspended license, because that's also something that is a domino effect. So your license gets suspended, then you can't go to work.
Right.
So now you're out of a job, and so now you're turning to more crime to make ends meet. So, America right now has over 2 million people in jail. That's the highest number of incarcerated people per capita in the entire world. And crime has not increased over 40 years, but the amount of people in jail has, and that's because of federal laws that have put those things in place. And we got to dismantle that little by little. And I will say the last thing is deprivatizing prisons is another main thing, because when you have private companies owning prisons, their main incentive is to make money. So their goal is to fill the jail up with as many people as possible. When prisons are ran by the government, they're motivated to not lock up people because taxpayers have to pay for it.
Right.
So that's a major thing in America, that corporations own prisons. That's totally conflict of interest. And it's driven the prison population up more than ever has been in America. And that definitely has to change. Definitely has to change.
Well, thank you for that, Star. Okay, Tommy, if you're on your phone, we're going to try to go ahead and bring you on so you can introduce yourself. So let me see. It doesn't like us today for some reason, and my phone keeps sliding. Let me see.
My phone right here.
Right. All right, Tommy, it's not showing me where you are. So log in and log back off, and it should let us go ahead and see you. Yeah, we over here rigging stuff up to make sure stuff is right, so the thing stop moving. So give me 1 second. Maybe that'll help some. Stabilize it.
Okay.
Okay. There we go. Alright, is that better, y'all? Move it back some.
Maybe I'll stay.
Alright, Tommy, where are you?
There you go.
Alright. So Star, you just made valid points about stuff being stupid offenses, basically about people being charged for stuff that doesn't need to be a crime, and then their sentences being longer than what they should be. So let's bring on Shakita and let me know, like, mentally, what impacts have you seen based upon basically people being in and out of the system? Let me add you. Let's see. Okay, it's gonna let Tommy on real quick. Hold on, guys, because we're just gonna let Tommy on and let him introduce himself. You know, Facebook is a slow process sometimes, so we just have to be patient. But we just want to make sure that everybody gets their introductions in and is connected. Hi, brother. You want to tell the people who you are?
Let me try. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
All right. Well, I am Tommy Tucker. That is my darling baby sister right there. Lovely girl. What am I supposed to be saying?
I mean, basically, just tell the
Can you hear
people. I can hear you. Tell the people who you are, some of your background, some of the things you went through, and some of the things you've seen while actually being subjected to the system.
Well, I am 43 years old. I reside in New York. I grew up pretty much in Virginia. At age 18, I had actually at age 12, I had my first encounter with the penal system, so far as corrections and DOC things were concerned. I went through supposed to be programs and rehabilitative programs most of my life. Honestly, I didn't see, due to whatever issues they wanted to attribute to me health-wise or whatever the case may be, all these designations of hyperactivity, just a lot of strategic things to keep me from developing. And it seems like a system that is well in place in the South. And it's rooted in stunning the growth, education, evolution of young men, especially young men of color, from becoming pivotal members of society and having a voice that can alter some of the political climate that we deal with. Because by the time you come out of the system, a lot of times you've lost the right to vote, and therefore you've lost that right to have an input from a perspective of having seen the inside of the system, knowing certain things that exist that are of detriment and of entrapment for young black men that we just never really get a chance to recover from.
Okay. So let's see. Shakita, are you back on your phone? So we can bring you in? Alright, hold on real quick. Alright, Tommy, go ahead and exit out of yours. And we'll bring you back in.
Back like I
So Star, how many juveniles have you seen like in and out the system in your practice?
Oh, I can't put a number on that.
Too many?
Yeah. I definitely can't put a number on that. A lot. Sometimes you walk into court. Unfortunately, sometimes I walked into court and, out of maybe 12 juveniles that were there, probably 10 were black.
Wow.
So, on average, that was an adult court too. So, they sat in a jury box waiting to be called, and the majority of them were always black males. But yeah, as far as a number, I can't tell you that.
That's crazy. Like, and you see that so often, and you also see young black men being tried more as an adult.
Yes.
Like, that's just not a fair system. Like, the definition says it's supposed to be just and impartial or fair, and that's not always the case.
The problem is that they don't see young black boys as boys,
And what do they normally see him as?
as men. Just like, Trayvon Martin, he saw him as an adult,
Right.
even though they're children, essentially. Only, white boys are considered boys, but black boys are always considered as
Men.
adults. They
Yeah.
are always looked at as adults.
Okay.
They don't have like the
The
right to have
benefit of the
childhood.
doubt.
Yeah.
All right. Tommy, go ahead and exit out of your screen.
I don't know how. I've been trying.
Just close your app then.
Okay.
All right, Shakita. Ask to join one more time for me, please. There we go. So we're adding you back. So right now we're going to get the perspective of basically what have you seen that's the psychological impact on being in and out of the system?
You're freezing a little bit, but I think I understand what you're asking me.
Okay.
So I'll just start off that conversation by saying that I don't have the numbers right in front of me, but a good 70 to 80% of people that are incarcerated have some type of mental illness. So when you put that into perspective, when people who already have a history of mental illness and then they're put into this very stressful environment, you do see some adverse effects of that. One of the things that I've experienced is some higher rates or higher symptoms of depression just by default of being in that confined environment, because of mental abuse that you may be subjected to within the inmates within that pod that you're in,
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes just by correctional officers. So I think that it has a profound impact on one's mental health. I will say that at least in this area, they are trying to do more to address mental health issues within the correctional system, such as having mental health pods.
Mhm.
So people who have that mental illness can somehow be secluded from other people who don't have that mental illness, to cut down on some of the abuse or stigma that's associated with having said mental illness. So for me, I think it's a lot of mental and emotional abuse that goes on in the jails.
Okay. Have you seen that there are a lot of transitional programs upon exiting that focus on the mental health issues?
So I think it's becoming a trend,
Mm-hmm.
because basically jails are becoming mental health institutions.
Mm-hmm.
When you don't have the appropriate mental health programs out in the community, people are breaking laws and they're becoming incarcerated. And so I think the jails and prisons are now having to force themselves to deal with this mental health problem. So again, I am starting to see a lot of programs in the jails, but I have to say that I also think that I live in a very unique area because mental illness is very high in this area. So I think there's more of a push to want to have better programmings. Are those programs always effective? No, because it's understaffed. People are underpaid, and you get burnt out very easily in the mental health field. So I don't think, and then, we could talk about funding all day long. There is very limited funding when it comes to mental health and substance abuse issues. And so again, when you don't have the appropriate resources, you also cannot
Be effective.
effectively do your job. Yeah, so a lot of these transitional programs, I'm going to be honest with you, they are a joke. They look good on paper, but do they really help transition people out in the community? Not always. Because again, there's limited resources, and then people are just burnt out, and they get to a point that they don't really care. They just want to push people out of jail, but then you start to see this revolving door
Absolutely.
of people coming in and out of jail. So there's a lot of work to be done in that area.
So, how important is it for them to actually get that mental health care once they're out and while they're in there and once they're out?
I'm gonna stay back to the question and see if I got it right. You were breaking up again. So are you asking how important is it for people to get mental health treatment not only inside the jail but on the outside as well?
Right.
I mean, it's very important. I mean, mental health is near and dear to my heart. When you think about mental health, you're thinking about someone's brain chemistry and how it affects not only how they think but also how they behave. So, to me, it's very crucial. It's even, and one of the things that I have found with working within the jail is you may have been getting great care on the outside, but that doesn't always translate into the jail. When you get inside the jail, you may be on a completely different medication once you get it in there, because maybe the medication that you was taking on the outside was too expensive for the jail to take on as a cost, so they're not willing to bring that medicine into the jail. You also have issues with medications being abused. So you may have been on a medication on the outside, but the jail or prison doesn't offer that medication because it's heavily abused within the jail or prison system. And so when you think about, someone who may have been on a medication for an extended period of time and then they're abruptly taken off that medication, that's going to affect them mentally, and then they're put into this stressful environment as well. So, I mean, it's a lot of layers to this. Again, you may have been seeing your therapist, on a consistent basis on the outside, but that service may not be offered in the jail or prison, again, because of funding, not enough space within the jails, or just not enough interest in wanting to have that program there. So, I mean, it's very important. We have mental health is an issue across the board, whether we're talking criminal justice or not.
Right.
We have a lot of mental health issues in society as a whole.
Okay. Thank you for that. Tommy wants to join, so let me add him in.
All right.
All right, Tommy, go ahead and send your request to join again. Where you go? It's a plug over there in the corner too. All right, hold on, y'all. We're trying to get Tommy back on so he can add his perspective. Let me see. All right, go ahead, Tommy. We're adding you back in now. All right, go ahead, bro.
All right, can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay. I listened to a lot of the points made, and one of the things that I feel like is the precursor to us going through this process, speaking from an internal aspect of being rehabilitated by the system, or supposedly however the terminology goes. I haven't kept up with it in years because I made a determination within myself. Once I was done with it, I was done. That was just going to be a chapter that I had to grow from, a testimony for me to go forward with. But a lot of this starts in school. And a lot of times when these situations come up where the criminal element exists, and you look at the behavior of people and suggest the programs that they may need, it starts in these schools. Because as children, we are so transparent and we wear so much on our sleeves. We say what we feel. And we don't look at the external component of how it's affecting the other person. And we don't know how strong or weak that person's mentality is. So when the seed is planted in elementary school, and it has an unnoticeable period of time to grow and fester into an adulthood where people have had silence from 4th, 5th, 6th grade on up through high school, where you're starting to get the peer pressure and the sexual advances and more peer pressure from, the ideal group that you really want to associate yourself with, because everybody picks the type of person that they want to be like. It's not always the greatest of role models that we choose. Because sometimes, as a young man, I know rappers were big with me when I was at the age when I was in school. Because you saw them make all this money. They had these chains. They had all the ideal things that you would want as a thug or a hood or whatever the case may be. And if you were like me and you grew up and your parents kept you in church, you know, the peer pressure from the outside was, oh, you weren't around carrying the Bible. And it automatically makes you mentally say, no, that's not me. So you try to act like somebody you're not. All these seeds are planted from the time the teachers are telling you you're hard-headed, you're never going to be anything. We're going to put you in this remedial class. We're going to put you in emotionally handicapped classes. Well, there's so many different designations. Learning disabled classes. You know, you're segregating at that point. When segregation was supposed to have already been abolished, dealt away with, schools were still finding systematic ways to still put it together. So now you have people running around mentally feeling like I'm not as good as another group. So the behaviors that they're exhibiting is a need for acceptance. And when they can't get that acceptance, they lash out in other ways is self-destructive. And you wind up with a person who, after, let's see, if you're in school between the ages of 5 years old on up to 18, but you can't talk to your parents because your parents won't even approach certain subjects. You can't get with a guidance counselor or a psychologist or anything because some families couldn't afford it because of their monetary structure. A lot of this could be addressed in school. So before it even gets to a systematic point where you're in an incarcerated situation and you have people suggesting, you know, more stringent means of retribution for what you've done. A conversation with a parent who was concerned enough to actually look internally into a child's struggles and address it at the base level, that would have been ideal. But a lot of times it goes unnoticed in the parental structure. And that's all I wanted to add to that. Now, a lot of this could be addressed in elementary school when we have people that are dedicated to the point of making sure these children evolve instead of just shutting them in and telling them to just suck it up, be a man, be a woman. When you're 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, and you grow up with this false sense of what being an adult is supposed to represent, you know. So that's the point I wanted to make.
All right, cool. Yeah, I do agree. A lot of the structure, like honestly, sometimes schools are structured like the jail, like they're mirrored because it's just like, listen to this person, go here at this time, don't talk to nobody, go here at this time, do this, do that. And a lot of times our children are labeled as bad, or you're bad because you're talking in class. I'm a kid. I'm full of energy. Like, what do you expect from me? I'm going to talk. Like, I'm going to have interaction with other people because that's my spirit. Like, the younger they are, the more free spirited they tend to be. And people start labeling us in school. And that's what it is. And then it kind of just snowballs from there. So it just goes from being you're a bad kid to you're a criminal. Pretty much. Like, and that's how they looked at you. Tyson wanted to come on next, so go ahead and hang up your part, Tommy.
Okay.
All right, so now we're going to bring Tyson on because he wants to give his perspective. Let me see. You got it? And y'all, this is all trial and error. So it might be. All right. Hold on. All right, Ty. So we're about to add you in. And yeah, it might be lagging for some people. But we also have playback as well. So if you miss something, just be sure to watch the playback so you can hear everything that's going on. You can hear us, Tyson?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. Go ahead.
The piggyback off what Tommy said, I mean, the school to prison pipeline, I mean, it's real.
Yes.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's a real thing. However, I, in my opinion, as a kid growing up, I mean, I didn't have the most glamorous childhood. Far from it. And to me, it goes back to, again, once you get a certain age. I mean, how long are the excuses are going to be allowed? That's my opinion. Because once you get to a certain age period, you know what? I want to do this. I want to go to school, or I want to be that guy, that go on, I want to be famous, or whatever the case may be. Again, when is drive and accountability, self-accountability going to take place? Because at some point, you got to sit back and realize this right here. Guess what? I want out of my situation. No matter how bad it is, or how bad it may get, I want out of that situation no matter what. So at the end of the day, me personally, I just can't fathom the thought of, again, as an adult now, as a functioning adult, and a lot of stuff I had to learn on my own through trial and error. But as a functioning adult, looking back on my childhood and experiences that I had, maybe far from glamorous, there's nothing I can say that I would change. And then when it comes to, criminal justice reform, I feel like we're going in the wrong direction by a long shot. Because the same people who are hollering about, we got to have criminal justice reform, et cetera, et cetera. Now I'm all for, again, criminal justice reform, because you have people that are locked up on a daily basis. Yeah, but I can't. That thing's loud, and it's distracting me. Where was I? I lost track.
Yeah, people locked up on a daily
basis.
basis.
Criminal justice reform. Now, me, because again, my occupation, I'm impacted in very different ways. Again, because the same people who go about making these laws and decisions, again, guess what? In my job, no matter what the situation may be, I'm going to be impacted either way it goes, whether it's in a good way or a bad way. And from my job occupation, I'm getting impacted in the wrong direction, particularly coming in from a CO standpoint. Again, legislation gets passed through. Again, as a CO, I feel like a glorified babysitter. Because again, at the end of the day, I can't, I believe in rehabilitation. We don't rehabilitate anymore. They're taking away the money from the programs that they used to have, taking away, that they once had or whatever. And then when it comes down to it, and then when it comes to dealing with inmates, guess what? I have to play defense on a constant basis. Everything is defense. Nothing that I do can be offensive. Because guess what? The moment I play play offense, guess what? Now I'm sitting at a lawsuit. I'm sitting through court cases, et cetera, et cetera. Even though I'm in a position where literally my hands are tied behind my back. An inmate can attack me. A moment an inmate attack me, guess what? Boom. Next thing you know, and I defend myself, I'm still going to end up in the court system. Because no matter, if it goes left, goes bad for the inmate, guess what? He ends up getting hurt. I'm in the courtroom having to explain what happened. But guess what? There's bleeding hearts out there. No matter what the situation is, guess what? We all corrupt from the law enforcement perspective. Everybody's corrupt. Everybody's wrong. But now, if say if I get hurt by that inmate, guess what? I'm still going to be at fault, no matter what. Because, I should have followed policy, procedure, whatever the case may be. Again, we can follow policies and procedures all day long, but that doesn't mean the policies and procedures make sense. It doesn't matter, no matter what you do. So, as time goes forward, I see the more I look around, everybody wants to believe that everybody in the criminal justice system that's been put there, everybody wants to believe that, guess what, they're there by, some corrupt cop or whatever the case may be because they're related to someone or whatever the case may be. And that's far from the case. I mean, you have a lot of individuals that walk through these jails and prisons. Guess what? They're rotten to the core. No matter how you look at it, they're rotten. And I'm not saying all of them, because guess what? I've come across some of those guys, guess what? They just had a bad stroke and strain with the law. They had bad luck. Something went wrong. Hey, I've seen cats come in there, guess what? They came in there at 7 weeks, and some of the most polite individuals you can think of. Then I've seen cats come from, well-privileged backgrounds that come through those doors. Guess what? They some of the most rotten individuals you can think of. So for me, as coming from this CO perspective and mindset, we're going down a very, 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 bad path right now. Because guess what? Those people that the public expect and that nobody wants to think about, that they're locked behind those bars and jails, whatever the case may be. Guess what? Those people, everybody forget about. The CO mentality. Again, their mental health. And I feel like everybody wants to put in all these programs, et cetera, for the inmates, which I'm all for that. Because again, your jails and prisons are now turned into mental health institutions. But then again, all we can do is sit around and point fingers all day.
Okay.
I mean, and then as from a law enforcement perspective, guess what? You can't ask for help. Especially when you're around and you see so much that happens on a regular basis. Thank God for the prayer amendment. They got put in there and whatnot. I mean, but again, from a law enforcement perspective, what do you do? There's nothing you can do. Your hands are tied. Point blank. Period. Damned if you do, damned if you don't. And that's my 2 cents.
Okay. So you gotta go ahead.
Huh?
Go ahead.
I mean, I do understand what you're saying about, that there are bad people in jail, et cetera, and I don't think anyone would disagree with that. The problem is that we're trying to get people from getting to you in the first place that don't need to be there. For instance, it's a statistical fact that black people in general are arrested 4 times the rate of white people for drugs, when black people and white people use and sell drugs at the same rate. That's what we're talking about. In Manhattan, if you're a minority, you're 11 times more likely to be arrested for drugs than a white person. That's what we're talking about. So we're talking about people serving time in a correctional facility, for instance, for a non-violent crime. I'm not scared of marijuana smokers when I walk down a dark alley. Those aren't the people I'm scared of. Those people don't need to be serving long sentences in prison because we pay for it as taxpayers. And if it's a private facility, basically they're being locked up to make free money for companies that don't pay taxes. That is modern day slavery. So that's what we're talking about. We're not saying that people that are there don't belong there. There are corrupt cops. I mean, everyone knows that. I don't think all corrupt cops are corrupt, but I've been in the criminal justice system and I know for a fact that all cops are not good. I've had cops plant things on my client and be caught on video. Personally, I've had that experience. So no, there's no side that is lacking in ill will or corruption. But what we're saying is that there's no way that America should have over 2 million people in jail when nobody in America commits more crime than any other country. It's not like America is more dangerous than other countries. We're not. But our criminal justice system, there's 600 people per 100,000 per capita people in jail in America, as to where there are other countries that have 12. I mean, that's crazy. So, I mean, that's what we're talking about when we're talking about reform. I mean, I do think that there is a mental health component, that there is, COs and people that are in there dealing with mental health issues. They don't have the proper training. You may not have the proper training to deal with somebody that has psychological issues. That's a whole different field that you're not even prepared for. So I get that, but I think we're going down in the right direction, and I don't think we're going far enough.
Yeah, and I feel like, back to what you said about Shakita, I see your hand too, and I feel like what you said about trial and error and people living through trial and error, a lot of these people are living through trial and error, and sometimes they're living in the era of what they did. And it's not everybody doesn't have the mentality to overcome their certain situation. Like, some of us are rams in a bush when it comes to overcoming certain situations. So then back to the COs and back to defense attorneys, we're left to kind of navigate them through it. That's just like being a mentor. Like when you have a child and you're trying to make sure you're steering that child back in the right direction. And back to what Star said, it's us. Like, you see a lot of us being locked down for petty stuff, and then you see judges, even if the prosecutor is trying to give somebody a break, you'll see the judge go over them and not be fair. Like, we got people that have been in offices for years that have an agenda for years or have a stake in the case or making sure that people go to jail. Like, that's what we're talking about with reform. We want fairness. Like, now we know this system won't built for us, but we have to get it or infiltrate the system to a point that it's fair. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't mean that.
No.
But I just thought like the simplest way to put it is, no matter how much responsibility anyone takes, you're never gonna be a responsible citizen in the eyes of people who constantly see you as a threat
or a thug.
So you can be the most upstanding, law-abiding person in the world, but if that system constantly sees you as a threat, that's what you're going to be treated as. And that's what we mean by it's a system in place that's been in place for centuries, because we all know that cops, the introduction of cops to America were slave catchers.
Yeah.
So I mean, if that's the inception of law enforcement, that tradition still continues, and you can't say it's not. So it is. I mean, and the statistics prove it. I know I'm right. So I mean, and so that's what I'm saying. Like, I understand that people need to take responsibility for their actions, but if you constantly see Black people as criminals and threats, and that's the way you treat them, whether they take responsibility or not doesn't matter.
All right. Well, let me ask you this. Would you what do you reckon the percentage, let's talk about conviction rates, et cetera, et cetera. You're a defense attorney.
Mm-hmm.
Would you agree that somewhere between 80 to 90% of those cases never even go to trial?
They don't, but it doesn't mean that they don't result in convictions, because they get pled out. So,
but all right, you're a defense attorney, right?
I was, yeah. I've switched, but I used to be a criminal defense attorney for many years. Yeah.
So, with that being said, somewhere between 80 to 90% of cases never even go to trial because they're usually, the conviction rates come from plea bargains, correct?
That's correct.
All right. So, with that being said, why, if there's going to be any type of change in the criminal justice system that, like I said, I'm all for accountability, et cetera, et cetera. However, when it comes down to it, I've never been a defense attorney, so I don't know how that works. But my question is right here. For all those defense attorneys, public defenders, et cetera, why do they encourage their clients to take plea deals when, again, if they fight it, they probably can be vindicated from the charge. That's what I want to know. I mean, so again, so to sit there and say that, that cops, in a sense,
I'm not saying it's just all cops. I didn't say that.
Are somewhat dirty. I mean, and I can't.
The whole system is dirty. So when I say,
from my perspective, and in my experiences, in my experience, I have, that's far few in between, but I can say this much right here. You have a lot of people, again, just like you got white collar crimes and blue collar crimes. You'll see more white collar crimes go to trial. I mean, in my opinion, I think the entire system needs to be torn down and reconstructed. I agree.
But that's what we're saying.
However, I will say this much right here. The defense attorneys, in my opinion, are just as much as a problem as these corrupt cops and these DAs.
Now, specify the difference between the defense and the public defenders and the workload.
And you're supposed to defend the defendant or whatever. Again, we all know that you're proven, there's no such thing as you're innocent until proven guilty. Nowadays, you have to prove your innocence. It's just that simple. That's why you have so many men that go to jail as prior to their court cases. Now, with that being said, I just want to know what's your perspective. Why are these cases not going to trial as opposed to all these plea bargains being made? That part I've always been curious about.
So there's many levels to this. So first of all, I never said that it's all cops. The system to me is broken. I agree with you on that. It's just a circle that goes round and round. That includes judges, prosecutors, defense attorneys, prisons, etc., etc. So about public defenders, now I have represented somebody in court as a private attorney when I wasn't working for the state, and I have represented somebody as a public defender. The problem with public defenders and criminal defense lawyers and prosecutors is, like I said, there's no one group that's totally absolved of corruption. Like, because people are human, and humans are sometimes terrible people, and they become attorneys, judges, law enforcement officers, etc., etc. But the government generally puts more money into prosecution in the district attorney's office than they do the public defender's office. So, for instance, the public defenders may not get investigators readily available like the state's attorney's office would. And they may not have as many attorneys in the office as public defenders, because there were times where I had like 900 cases just for myself. That's not humanly possible to pay specific attention to 900 cases and give them the care they deserve. Not only that, but the state doesn't value public defenders, and so you're underpaid. So you're overworked and underpaid, and a lot of the times the prosecutors know that, and they also put attorneys in a bind because they say, well, if you try the case and lose, we're going to give you the max. So, you have it to where you can try the case and you might win, but if you lose, then you're served 5 years. But if you plead, maybe you do 6 months in probation. I mean, that's a huge difference, right? That is also corruption, because you should have a prosecutor's office that wants justice and not just convictions. When your success is based on convictions, then that is automatic room for corruption, because your goal is to get numbers, not to actually see who's done it and who hasn't done it. And so at the local level, we have to make sure we put the right district attorneys in place that want to administer fairness, which is very rare. Most district attorneys' offices want convictions, and that's how they measure their success. So are there some lawyers, defense lawyers, that are lazy and they don't work and they don't defend their clients to their utmost ability? Yes, there are terrible attorneys out there. There are also attorneys like myself who are very passionate, who worked very hard, and I still am not humanly possible could pay attention to 900 cases. You cannot do it. Some cases I'm going to put more work into than others. It really should be that everyone should get the best representation, but that's just not possible, because again, it's the system that's put in place. So that's part of it. It's easy to say, well, why didn't they go to trial and blah blah blah, but when you're in it and you have 23 cases that day in 4 different courtrooms, maybe the person that has a marijuana charge to me isn't going to be that important to me as somebody who has a burglary felony that's facing 10 years. I may not pay that much attention to the marijuana charge. And that's not right, but that's what I'm forced to do. And so, they need to pay lawyers more. They need to put more money into defense counsel. They need to have an environment of fairness and justice and not convictions. It's a lot of things that go into place with that.
Okay. All right.
I hope that makes sense.
That makes sense to me. Shakita, you want to join in now? All right, here we go, Kita. We adding you in now. Let's see if it did the request.
I don't have my glasses on, so I can't read any comments. I don't even know what's happening right now.
All right, Tommy said a lot comes down to the pre-sentence report that's compiled to set the guidelines for how much time they can impose. You agree with that?
Yeah. I mean, a lot more, there's a lot more crimes and stuff being criminalized than it was before. For marijuana, they should just be handing out citations. You really shouldn't be in court having sentencing issues with things like that. So I would agree with that. That is one component of justice reform and what needs to happen that needs to be changed.
Okay.
So I totally agree with that. Yeah.
All right, so we're just gonna throw this question out to anybody who wants to answer it. Let's see. Do you feel like once you see the conditions of the jails, do you feel like the inmates are treated like humans, or are they more treated like caged animals? And it may be lagging, so I don't know if everybody caught that question. So I guess we can have a conversation about it because we in real time.
Other people to talk too. I'm interested in hearing what some other people have to say.
The question is, do you feel like inmates are treated like humans once they're behind bars?
I definitely want to hear the CEO answer.
Natalie said both. All right, Tommy, go ahead. Request. So it looked like Tommy showed up first, Keita. All right, Tommy, put your request in to be added. Natalie said depends on the CO. Tommy said there's a double standard. Okay, hold on, Tommy. So it's being petty towards the end. Send your request again. All right, Tommy, send your request one more time so we can get you on. Or we gonna see. Let me add Keita real quick. All right, Keita, I'm adding you on.
Girl, this technology.
I'm telling you.
So, and Tyson had to leave. He had to leave the discussion, but I think I agree with what Natalie said. It's both. There are some correctional officers who use that badge to abuse power and to take advantage of the inmate because of the power structure that's put there. But you also have COs like Tyson, who treats the inmates very fairly. He holds them accountable, but treats them fairly and treats them like the human being they are. One of the things that I constantly heard as a service provider coming in is, thank you for treating us like a human. Thank you for talking to us like we're just a normal person on the street. You're not coming in here trying to talk down on us because of the position that you're in. And I truly believe that if COs did more on actually speaking to people appropriately and respectfully, I think it would cut down a lot of the issues that they face in the jail. Will it take away all the issues? No, because as he said, there are a lot of inmates who are just straight up dicks. I mean, I hope Facebook Live will get cut off or whatever, but some of the inmates just don't know how to act either. And Tyson gets a lot of strife for being a good CO sometimes, so I understand his frustration as trying to be a fair and good CO to the inmates, and they still try to take advantage of that as well. So I can't say that I have seen a lot of corruption per se, but I don't think they would do that in front of me either. But I have seen COs that just excessively talk down on the inmate when they're simply asking them a question, and I'm like, what's the point of doing that? You're just doing it because you can, but you're wondering why you're having all these issues in the jail.
Right.
So I think it goes both ways.
Okay, thank you for that. All right, so my next question is, well, you've had clients as well. So why do you feel like people look at convicted felons differently than they look at someone who wasn't caught?
You put that question on there, and I was a little confused by that. Look at someone differently who's was a convicted felon versus a what again?
Against somebody who wasn't caught. So say for instance you have somebody doing the same crime. So we're gonna use Bill Cosby. Bill Cosby convicted of rape. You got Donald Trump, who's our president. You got a man who is up for nominee to sit on the Supreme Court, who also has a back record. So why do you feel like, of course we know why there's kind of a different treatment, but why do you feel like they look at people differently? Why should you look at that person any differently? Not for the rape charges, but for, let's say if they were selling weed or selling drugs, why does like employers or just normal people, once they figure out that you have a conviction, why do they treat you differently?
For me, I look at it's because it's a label. In their eyes, a label kind of solidifies, oh, you must have really done this, or you must be a really bad person because you now have this label attached to you. You have went through the process in whatever shape or form it was, whether it was a trial or whether it was a plea bargain. You now have this label attached to you everywhere you go. Versus our president or whatever you want to call him. It's just accusations. It's just words. To me, it kind of, I can't really explain it well right now, but for me, it's because this person now has a label. And when you have that label, it almost kind of seals the deal, so to speak. Same instance when someone is diagnosed with a mental health disorder. Oh, when they have that label attached to them, it must be real because they now have this diagnosis. And I think we live in a very unforgiving society. I think we don't do enough of trying to give people second chances. I think we're just so quick just to write someone off just because they do have some type of label. Whether it is a convicted felon or whatever the case may be. And to me, that kind of plays to this larger picture of why we continue to have so many people incarcerated and go in and out of jail, because it's literally throw away the key and don't think about them anymore. But then we still expect these people to come out of jail and still be successful. It doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't make sense at all. It's like, someone is running a race, but people are throwing rocks and stepping in front of you, and all these barriers are put in place for you not to be able to move forward. And it's the same thing with having this conviction. She was saying earlier, like, why are we convicting people on driving on a suspended license when having transportation is your livelihood to work to pay off those fines or whatever? Like, it just makes no sense. We set people up for failure, and then when they fail, oh, it's your fault. It's totally your fault. And so, one of the things that, Tyson spoke on earlier that I kind of wanted to speak on is he makes a really good point. Yes, he was able to overcome a lot of barriers in his life, but I get frustrated when people think that everyone is supposed to do that or everyone has the ability to do that. And I just think it's a little bit more deeper than that. People have still other barriers and things that it's a hard time for them to overcome. They may not have someone in their corner to push them along the way, or have some type of positive presence in their life. And when you don't have a positive presence in your life, it's very hard to be motivated to do anything. Again, I think back to when I was working with these ladies inside the jail. Many of them said, Shakita, you were the first person to believe in me. When you don't have nobody believing in you, when everyone just thinks you're a lost cause, what's the point of trying? Sometimes it takes just someone from the outside to push you up. Yes, we need to have intrinsic motivation and want to do things for ourselves, but sometimes that got to come from the outside. Because if I'm at a place where I don't think I'm nothing, or I don't think I'm going to succeed, it's going to be hard for me to continue just to push myself up and not have someone on the outside see something differently in me.
Right, so, especially a kid.
Right. So, I think sometimes, and me and him have this discussion all the time, I think he tries to paint a broad stroke on that. because he didn't do it on his own either. He's had people in his corner to cheer him along as well. And I think sometimes we tend to forget the importance of having those positive people in your life cheering you on, telling you that you can do something different.
I agree. All right, so this is just a broad question for anyone. Does anyone think that they know all of their rights? No. Because we got books this thick where everybody writes in them, and we still don't know all of them.
Mm-mm.
So.
And they change so much.
Yeah, and they change without us knowing.
Yeah.
So I would say my best advice is just stay aware of what's changing around you and the laws that are changing around you and the laws that affect you, because hell, even as lawyers, we don't always know what's going on. But we have to learn. Like, you gotta know your rights, because no offense to any police officers or whatever, they don't know the law the same way we do. Or if you're doing research and you know for certain that's your rights, they can't tell you otherwise. Now, they'll tell you to comply and make sure that you get back alive. But if you know your rights, you can listen to what they're saying. Don't compromise your life because you know your rights. But handle them in a different setting. Get their badge numbers, call it in, and you're going to have pushback.
Sometimes they'll tell you you're not allowed to use your phone, camera phones, and
Absolutely.
that's not true.
They told us that. Like,
Yeah,
we were
that's not
literally pulled over in college, and the man was like, put all your phones on top of the car. You're not supposed to have them because you might be calling somebody to come shoot us.
Mm-mm.
What?
Yeah, no.
Like, what are you
That's
hiding?
crazy.
Then we asked for the badge number. He was like, you can't have it. So you know you're out here doing something crazy.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it really just depends. Tommy, you want to come on and just give us a final thought so we can wrap up for tonight? Tommy said there are going to be tiers as to the expectations you can place on any individual coming from a prison. Everyone is different, and no matter how much help you offer someone, they have to want to change. The question is, how do you determine who is worth the risk of trusting to re-enter society with a new lease on life? Where'd it go? Hold on, Tommy, send it again. I mean, yeah, like you said, you have to want better too once you actually get out. And some people don't know what better is because they've been in the system for so long. Like, life continued while they were in the system. So it's just like, okay, well, what do I do now? Like, what's next? Like, who's going to hire me? And then if you're locked up out of state, like, who's going to come get me? Like,
Right.
who can I rely on right now? Like,
Right.
and then if you ain't had nobody there for you the whole time, or if you had family members and stuff die while you were in there, like, nobody takes that into consideration. Like, you literally can come out of jail and be homeless, like, have nothing. And then that's a spiral again. Like, that's the domino effect again, because you're just going right back to what you know. Well, Tommy, if you send another request, I'll try to add you on, because it didn't let you come in this time. So, any other questions or anything anybody want to post in the comments, and I'll read them out loud, and we'll try to get an answer for it. Honestly, that's a wrap. Like, we tried to discuss everything that we could regarding justice reform. We really just want the system to be fair. Like, if you're going to lock somebody up for a drug charge or whatever charge, just make it fair across the board. Like, I don't care how many prior convictions you had. I don't care, like, what your past looks like or what your economic status is or who your parents are. That shouldn't determine the amount of time you get. Or it shouldn't determine, like, why you're treated differently. Like, That's just not fair. That's not what the justice system's supposed to be set up for. So in an effort, just consciously, even if you have kids in your neighborhood, just look out for each other, because they're looking for somebody to look up to. And sometimes it's easier to grab them as kids than it is for adults. Because once you become an adult, you kind of just stuck in your ways. So if you have children in your neighborhood, or you're a parent yourself and somebody is trying to label your child as bad or have some type of disorder, go with your gut feeling. Don't listen to what nobody else has to really say about your child, because you know your child. They're talking in class, that doesn't make them bad. If they're not paying attention in class, what is lagging? Like, what's missing? That doesn't automatically make them a bad kid, and people need to learn that. Shakita?
Yeah, I'm sorry. It's a delay. No, I just wanted to speak on when you said, we want the system to be fair. We have to figure out a way to get more people like us in the system to help make it fair, because we all know that no one has our own best interest than us.
Right.
And we could do so many podcasts about this whole justice system thing, because in the Black community, there is even a stigma tied to becoming a police officer. Oh, you a pig, you a snitch, you this, that, and the third. Same thing as being a correctional officer. The same way if you become a lawyer, there's a level of you're corrupt, or you're just on the judge's side or the juror's side as well. So we also have to break down these thoughts that we have about the criminal justice system and the participants that's in it that looks like us, so we can come in and infiltrate these systems, because we can't expect the white man to want to all of a sudden be fair towards us. Like, it's just not going to happen. And and I think it can start from the bottom up. And for me, the bottom up is, hey, being more open to being a police officer, being more open to being a correctional officer. If you don't like the things that they are doing in the police departments, or if you don't like the things that they are doing in these jails and prisons, become one of those. So you can be something different for these inmates, for these people that you come across on the street, and may or may not be committing crimes. So I would love to see more Black people, not only being judges and lawyers. Yes, we need those too, but we need our street workers, our police officers. We need more correctional officers who look like us as well, because if I'm a Black CO or I'm a Black police officer, I'm going to understand the experience it is to be a Black person. So I may be more inclined to respond to you differently as a Black inmate. Now, of course, you're going to have those people that I call Uncle Toms, who also see themselves as somehow above the Black inmate because they are in that position of power. We have those as well. Our Clarence Thomases, as I like to say. As a whole, if we start to get into these systems ourselves, we can be the change instead of waiting on the white people to make the change.
Okay. So I'm going to end it with Tommy's comment, and it said this would be an open and shut answer if every home were set up the same way, that the tables were all even and we all came from the same launch pad until adulthood. But there are generationally past behaviors to take into consideration. A lot of things hinge on breaking the cycle in these families to give people that have made mistakes a chance to become more in life. Totally agree. So with that, this is the More About Something podcast. I want to thank all our guests. Star, thank you for coming.
Thanks for having me.
Tommy, thank you for coming. Shakita and Tyson, thank you for being on. And everybody that made comments, Natalie, thank you. Thank you for everybody that's making comments and just making sure we're all trying to work together and find a resolution to this system that we all live in and has impacted us either horribly or somewhat, or we know somebody that has been impacted by our justice system. So please, again, if you see kids that need a mentor, or you see somebody in your community that's struggling and they keep getting in trouble, just try to help them. Try to find out what the root cause is. You can't help everybody, but if you help at least one person, you're doing your part. So again, previous episodes can be found on YouTube. This is the More About Something podcast, and we thank you, and we'll catch you next Thursday. Deuces.
For his goodness and for his wonderful works unto the children of men. If my people will lift my name tonight, I will come in.